Good morning, everyone. My name is Cassie Hopkins, and I help coordinate the webinars for Hausman Johnson Insurance and the Benefit Services Group. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, How to Establish a Successful Return to Work Program, presented by Peg Kramer. This webinar is going to be interactive and will feature a question and answer session at the end. You can type a question in at any time during the webinar, and Peg will address it. After the webinar is over, there will be a short survey we are hoping you can fill out for us to give us feedback on the webinar and webinar topics you are interested in learning more about. Just a reminder that this webinar will be recorded and will be available on the webinar archives section of our website. Each attendee will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording and the presentation slides. And now I would like to introduce you to our presenter, Peg Kramer. Peg has over 20 years of experience in the claims field. She joined Hausman Johnson Insurance as a claims counselor in 2014 and primarily focuses on workers' compensation accounts. Prior to Hausman Johnson Insurance, Peg was an all-lines field adjuster and was also a claims manager in QBE's workers' compensation claims department. She graduated from UW-Platteville with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and psychology. We are so thankful to have Peg here, and I welcome her now. Welcome, Peg.
Well, thank you, Cassie. Good morning, and good morning, everyone. I am very excited to be talking this morning about one of my favorite topics, workers' compensation, and I hope that all of you are staying safe and doing well during our quarantine. But you know, life must go on, and we need to do the best that we can and be as positive as possible. My hope for you today is to take at least one item away, one positive idea that you could implement or improve in your workers' compensation program. If you don't have a return to work, maybe now is the time to think about it. And we're certainly willing to help you here at Hausman Johnson and do anything that we can for you. Today's agenda, we're going to kind of be bouncing around a little bit, but we're going to be talking about what is light duty work and how do you define it and how do you create it at your place of business. We're also going to talk about how return to work programs can save on your bottom line. We're going to talk about finding temporary jobs for injured workers outside of your organization. I'd like to also talk a little bit about getting the most from your insurance carrier, specifically your insurance adjuster. We'll talk a little bit about how claims and loss prevention cross the streams. If you do a little work ahead of time on loss prevention, it may prevent a claim and you won't have to talk to people like me. Also, we will be talking about ways to help the injured worker's physician return them to work. We'll talk about how to sell this return to work program to upper management as a new philosophy, but you will need their buy-in. We'll discuss maintaining employee morale in the area that the injured worker was working, and how it's a very good idea to have a designated point person for return to work, and which Wisconsin workers' compensation laws back this effort. So let's get right into it. Light duty defined. When you have an injury, when one of your employees is injured and they seek medical treatment, most likely in, I would say 80% or more of the cases, the doctor will give return to work orders that may involve temporary work restrictions to ensure a proper recovery. That does make sense. So the best scenario out there is if your injured worker can return to their pre-injury job. If that is not what the work restrictions indicate, you will have to create a temporary job or work for your injured worker to do while they're recovering at the same time. It's a great idea to have your people back into the workplace, back into their schedule, doing a temporary job and recovering at the same time, so you're not paying the person to stay home and not do any type of work. This can save on your production costs and keep morale in check after a work injury. Now, a couple things here. This must be meaningful employment, and it must adhere to the treating practitioner's current work restrictions. That is the deal. Restrictions may be on such physical capabilities as bending, reaching, pulling, lifting for a designated period of time. So this period of time is called transitional work, from when the employee is given work restrictions until they're discharged from the doctor. So how do I go about finding temporary work in your organization? I think, one of my mottos is 2 heads are better than 1. So if you currently don't have a return to work program and are starting at ground zero, it's a great idea to enlist as many people as are willing to work with you in your organization for ideas. I'm talking about if you have a safety committee, if you have other managers, the job superintendent or the operations manager. If you're not aware of what all your employees do and what their physical capabilities are, it's good to enlist as many people as you can, including management, because you're going to need to brainstorm for a little bit here. If sometimes when I go into businesses, I hear people say, oh, if I only had an extra body to do this, this, and this. Well, return to work program can nicely fit into that wish list. Think about the extra help. If you did have a body for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, what are the things that you could have them do? Many of our clients have injured workers answer phones, do data entry if they're capable, shredding paper, cleaning, all sorts of cleaning, especially in COVID-19. Who isn't cleaning? Sorting of parts or pieces, mailers, painting, ride along with other salespeople as a trainer, focus on education or training. Maybe there's videotapes that they can watch. Maybe there's safety manuals they can put together or read. You really have to try to be as creative as possible and remember that this is a temporary position. Once you've identified several tasks, you should sit down then and put pen to paper and write up a job description which includes what this job is and specifically what the required physical capabilities are of that job. You certainly can ask for assistance from your insurance carrier, from your adjuster, or from their loss control staff, or that's something that we possibly can help you with at Hausman Johnson. And we have claim staff here in-house to help you do that. Another couple of ideas would be to talk to other businesses similar to yours to see what they do. Yeah, a lot of HR people, if I'm addressing HR people today, belong to SHRM or other trade organizations that you could enlist their help with. What do you do in these situations? Do you have a return to work program? What works? What doesn't? Quiz these people. I think we all forget our contacts and who can really help us in situations that would be the best. So one situation that I do hear multiple times is that either because of the work that is being done at your place of business, or maybe you have a small operations and you're just not able to bring an injured worker back to work, you can always enlist the help from your insurance carrier. Depending on your insurance carrier, this is usually a free service that they offer. And what it is, it's called a return to work or transitional work that can be tailored to your needs as a business. Work sources may include a Goodwill, St. Vinny's, sheltered workshops, local churches, local businesses that need help on a temporary basis. And this requires work on your part to start, enforce and maintain, but it gets the injured worker out of the house and back into some type of routine, which I think really does benefit you and the injured worker. Now, the one most important thing along with this is that you would continue wages during this time to save costs in your premium. You would continue paying them as if they were on your premise doing a job there. They're off-site, but you will maintain their wage. This is a backup plan in case you run out of temporary work for injured employees. Many of our employers may start an injured worker back at their business, but sometimes due to seasonal work, they may run out of work and use a TRTW, or transitional return to work situation. I really strongly suggest that transitional return to work becomes a culture in your business. I want you to make this a part of your culture. And this, of course, involves the buy-in of your management, your executive board, your owners. I know when you sit down, and once again, I can't assume, but I'm thinking that I'm talking to human resource consultants here this morning. Upon initial hiring, you or your staff sits down with new employees to make them aware of a return to program, or excuse me, a return to work program after injuries. You can put this verbiage in your employee handbook so that everyone is aware of the fact that you do have work for injured workers. You remind new and current employees of reporting procedures, and we'll talk a little bit later about a claims coordinator. But when you sit down with your employees, if you do have a handbook, you talk to them about, this is your job description, this is the wage, this is your schedule, here's where the bathrooms are. And once again, we have a return to work. In case you're injured, we value your employment, so we do have a return to work program for our injured workers, so that expectations are set immediately with brand new employees to make them aware that in case they are a person that makes a profession of having claims and goes from employer to employer to employer, they know ahead of time that you do have a plan and that you follow it. One good idea is to, if you have local clinics that you send your injured workers to, maybe put a call out to them. Some of them have workers' compensation departments. Some of their doctors may be willing to come to your place of business to see what you do and tour your plant or your business, so that they have a greater understanding of what you do and what you can offer injured workers. I would also involve local chiropractors if your injured workers treat with chiropractors, to come into your office and do the same. So you definitely want to do what you can to get medical providers on board, to solidify temporary job duties. So the main things are to coordinate a return to work. You are going to have to identify jobs as temporary and transitional for all injured workers. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it needs to be a program where clearly identified are positions that are temporary. We don't want this to become a permanent job, but temporary jobs that injured workers are able to do until they're released back to full duty. It is also imperative to let your claim representative know up front when you have a claim that you do have a return to work program, and that when the employee is able to return to work, you notify them immediately so benefits can stop. Many of them use programs where checks are sent out, by a computer on a weekly basis. And if they don't know when your employees return to work, those checks will continue to go out. I think offering a job on a temporary basis, we are social media today, so you can send a text, an email, a registered or certified letter, or call the employee to offer them the temporary job offer. It should include 4 main things, and I want you to keep this very, very neutral, very sterile. It should involve the date that they return to work, what's the work schedule is going to be, the hours involved, what their rate of pay is, and that the work available is within the restrictions given by their treating physician. Now, people nowadays treat with chiropractors, podiatrists, doctor of osteopath, orthopedic surgeons, all types of medical providers. So I think just leaving that area, not specifically, referring to the restrictions, just say work is available by your treating physician. I think it's also best to meet with the injured worker the date they return to work to answer any questions. They may be nervous. I think just a quick meeting, and you may want to involve their supervisor as well, so everyone is on the same page and that this is a successful program. And return. Let's talk a little bit about appointing a claims person or coordinator. Many of you I'm speaking to today may already be the ones that report any injured workers to your insurance carrier. I think that it's important that there should be consistency in this position, because workers' compensation can change. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with an insurance carrier, so there's many parts and pieces involved. This person would solely be the insurance carrier contact, and you also need to know the importance to everyone involved in this of the timely manner in which claims should be submitted to the insurance carrier. You need to develop a reporting process that works for you and your organization. You have a set plan in place and refer to it when injuries occur. You also should have a backup person in case you take vacation. Most of us do take a vacation, and I have heard several times from claim contact people that, oh, I was out on vacation for 2 weeks and I came back and there were 6 claims sitting there waiting for me. That's not a good situation. You should create a packet of useful reporting resources that include the name of your insurance carrier, the claims contact if you have an assigned adjuster, the employer's first reports of injury, your internal incident report procedure, and have all of that available, and especially if you have second and third shifts running when you may not have HR staff available during that time. So you want to have your procedure. You've gone to all this work to find jobs, work with the doctor, and of course the ultimate result or outcome needs to be the prompt reporting of the injury. Also make sure your top supervisors and line supervisors have this information. Many of our carriers now offer triage nurse hotline, where the injured worker actually comes in and calls a nurse on the telephone who takes information and actually does their first report of injury and assists the injured worker in determining if they should be seeking medical attention. So that service is becoming more and more prevalent in the claims arena. So talking to the doctor, you know, I grew up in a small town. Our doctors were very revered along with our clergy. And so sometimes people still have that image in their mind. And really, you as the employer are the consumer. You certainly have every right under workers' compensation law to contact the treating practitioner and speak to them after your injured employee has sought medical treatment. Also, you want to make sure that the clinic is aware that you have light duty work. Now, you may have an internal form that you give your employees to take to the doctor to complete and return. The following information should be available. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I hit my screen. Make sure that after every medical appointment, the injured worker comes back with the following information: the date of their visit, who they saw, was it a doctor, was it a nurse practitioner, is there work restrictions, what are they, can they do sedentary, medium, or heavy duty work, and how many hours can they do this, and of course the next appointment date. I want to talk a little bit here and insert medical treatment plan. When a physician is treating your injured workers, they should always have a medical treatment plan. That's their part in the claims process. And of course, what the doctor says drives the claim in Wisconsin. When your injured worker comes in and they have a fracture or a laceration, many times they're going to have an x-ray taken, they're going to have sutures, or they're going to require a cast or maybe a referral to another physician for possible surgery, but there should be a medical treatment plan that outlines day one. What is the injury? What is the diagnosis? What was the history? How did this happen? And then how do we treat and get your injured worker back to work? Perhaps it involves some temporary work, but they should have a plan and how to get your injured worker back into your doors as soon as possible. Now, if you have employees, and this happens frequently as well, sadly, but if you have employees that come in and announce to you that they were injured a month ago on your premises and they forgot to tell you about it, but I've been treating at the Hollandale Medical Clinic for the past month. That's the point where you will need to jump on the phone. Your claims coordinator should be contacting their treating the medical provider as soon as possible to let them know who you are, that you were just made aware of this injury, but you do have light duty work available, and then get that information to the insurance company. Sadly, this happens still frequently. You also should give that medical provider your phone number and fax number so that you can discuss return to work. Many times you'll want to send them job descriptions, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But a job description sent to the treating practitioner tells them physically what your injured worker is required to do in their workday. Now here's my holy grail of claims. I've done a lot of preaching over the years and educating, but these are the things that I will always tell you you must do. Number one, you need to report injuries immediately to your insurance carrier. When I say immediately, I'm talking within 24 to 48 hours. And I'm going to explain to you why that's important. You do not want to delay sending in a report to your carrier, even if you don't have all the information. That is no big deal. Let your claim rep work for you and do their diligent procedures and processes that they have to do for you. They can make a phone call just as well as you can, but the sooner that claim arrives on their desk, the better job they can do for you. I want you to stress the importance of timely reporting of injuries to all your employees and to their frontline supervisors. Make sure you let employees know how and when to report the injury so that you can avoid situations that I just discussed, where someone comes in a month after an injury that you know nothing about and says, hey, I'm scheduled for hernia surgery. I got to know what my claim number is. Time is of the essence when you have an injured worker and have an injury. So when I say 24 to 48 hours, I mean it, and there really are no exceptions. You also want to encourage support from coworkers after an injury has occurred to someone in their department. You need to have some empathy. Would you like to be the one that was injured? I don't think so. But this is where you really need to coach and discuss with line supervisors and job managers the importance of welcoming that injured person back to work. In Wisconsin, your insurance carrier has 14 days from the last day worked to make an on-time payment to your injured worker. If this does not occur, you may be fined, or your insurance carrier may be fined as well. And that is something that penalties are levied. So you need to realize that there can be a monetary penalty involved in late reporting. When I say 14 days, I'm talking about they have to make contacts. They're all required to make a contact to you first, the injured worker second, and the medical provider third. And that's usually within 24 hours of receipt of the claim. They have to do their due diligence for you as well. And many have best practices that they have to follow for initial contacts. Then they're going to have to take statements from people, statements from witnesses, get medical records. And medical records are very hard to get. Sometimes it takes up to 30 days to get medical records. Everyone is doing more with less. Also, bottom line, make your claims representative your new best friend. You know, you're an expert at what you do, so are they. So please give them your respect and correspond with them timely, as they are the ones that are going to be working the claim and doing the investigations. So what we talked a little bit about in the beginning is why should management back a return to work program? Now remember, in Wisconsin, there is a 3-day waiting period before lost time benefits kick in. If your employee is injured and they return to regular or temporary modified duties within 3 days, no lost time benefits are due. The claims that have lost time benefits paid, and I'm talking about temporary total disability for lost wages, those are the claims that drive your experience mod up and your premium up. So if you can keep a claim as a medical only by keeping salary continued, you're going to get a discount when that claim is reported to your regulatory agency. And here's an example. You have an individual that's injured, but you don't have a return to work program. They sustain $1,500 in medical costs. They also sustain $3,500 that's paid to them for lost time, as you did not have a return to work program and couldn't accommodate the work restrictions. The total amount of the claim is $5,000. $5,000 will go in dollar for dollar to the regulatory agency when the claim is submitted to them, and you receive no discount, okay? The same scenario where you do have a return to work program, you have the same medical costs, no lost time was paid because you were able to keep your injured worker employed and paid at full salary, either inside your business or outside your business. So the total claim, instead of being $5,000 without a return to work program, is $1,500, and your rating bureau will give you a 70% discount. So when that claim is reported, it will show as $450 paid out. That's quite a far cry from the $5,000. So you can see where this strongly affects your bottom line on how you handle claims that involve lost time. In Wisconsin, there is a specific statute, 102.43, that talks about exactly what we have been discussing this morning. Is that if you make an offer of suitable employment that is within the mental and physical limitations given by the doctor, you make a good faith offer that we talked about how to do with the injured employee, and the employee comes back and says, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not coming back till I'm totally free of work restrictions. Well, then you document that with your insurance carrier, and you don't have to make any payments to them, only for the hours worked, but the insurance company will not be supplementing that payment either. So it's up to them. You can't make them come back, but they're not going to be getting any payment from the carrier for benefits. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about things that I really wish you wouldn't do, or things that can give you exposure as an employer. And this is something that I deal with on a weekly basis with our clients. In Wisconsin, under Statute 102.35 sub 3, any employer who, without reasonable cause, refuses to rehire an employee who is injured on the job can be held responsible for a refusal to rehire. This is an action, and I want you to be aware of this, that is not covered under your workers' compensation policy. No one covers this action. Also, the defense costs that you would have to pay defending this type of action is not covered under your workers' compensation policy as well. So you're basically out in the cold, and you really have to think about whether, even though this is the worst employee you've ever had, the one that always trips your trigger, the one you should have maybe terminated 3 years ago, what happens if you would take this action during an active workers' compensation claim. Really the best scenario, if you are really bent on taking this type of action, is to contact your corporate attorney, and they will walk you through the process and they will talk you off the ledge, but it really, really is not a good idea. The penalty can be up to 1 year's wages if you are thinking about doing this. So let's talk a little bit about loss prevention. I'm not a loss control person, but doing this for as many years as I have been doing this, and I was a manager myself for 20 years. My background is that I came from 2 different insurance companies. One was a national company, but regionally located, and one was a regional insurance company that also wrote business mainly in the Midwest. So I'm coming to you from, my background has been always in claims, and for the majority on the insurance carrier side. So when we initially opened the discussion, I talked about written job descriptions that would, make it a great idea if you had this information on hand. Primarily, you would use this in the hiring process, but you would also use this in the return to work process and sending this information to the treating practitioner. Do you have written procedures for hiring practices? Do you do all the hiring yourself? Do you perform background checks prior to making an employment offer? That money usually is well spent, because you may find out some information that would change the situation in the hiring process. Do you obtain new hires through a staffing agency? Do you use the same staffing agency, or do you use word of mouth? Do you have a probationary period when you hire a new employee? And then lastly, do you engage in the services of an attorney, an employment attorney specializing in employment practices? Someone that covers termination of employees, someone that covers termination of employees while having an active workers' compensation claim. So my husband was reading my screens the other night, and he looked at Lucy, the psychiatrist. And yes, over many, many years, I've talked to a lot of you good people and tried to help and do the best I can in claim situations, specifically workers' compensation. But, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a human resource person. I certainly work with both professionals in the job that I do. But I've learned a couple things, and I do talk with HR people on a regular basis. So let's talk about an employee having concurrent actions going at one time. I do recognize that many employees who have workers' compensation claims may be the straw that breaks senior management's back, and an owner comes in and says, you have got to get rid of so-and-so, and you respond by saying, well, they have an active workers' compensation claim going on right now. This is absolutely the wrong time to take a disciplinary action such as termination. And that's why I really want you to make sure you have a corporate attorney that you can run the scenario past. An employee can hurt you more than you can hurt them. When I say hurt you, the time and amount of documentation and materials that you have to write and document and present takes up a lot of your valuable time that you could be doing something else and in a positive way. But also I want to take a step back and saying that if your employees are injured due to violations of safety procedures that you have in place, I still really think it's important you document those activities and write them up, even if they have a claim, but you need to follow your safety handbook. When I say the wrong time to take a disciplinary action, I'm talking about the termination process. As I said before, I'm coming from a workers' compensation perspective as working from the insurance carrier side, and now specifically and delightfully the agency venue side. As human resource professionals and consultants, I just want to remind you to please recognize the obligations under FMLA within Wisconsin, federal law, and any other states that your business employs workers. The Wisconsin Fair Employment Act does differ from the ADA. And remember the Crystal Cheese Lake case. And this is a case that talked about where an employee was injured outside of work and the employer would not accommodate their physical work restrictions, and she brought action against them. If you have a return to work program, I strongly suggest, and when I say return to work, I mean return to work program for injured workers. I strongly suggest you have a return to work for people that are on short-term disability or injuries or medical conditions that are not work-related. Many of our clients choose to run FMLA concurrent with a workers' compensation claim. And be aware that based on employee health history, if a workers' compensation claim is made and you still have, the employee is still protected by the FMLA or the ADA. Many of the injuries are severe enough that they may cause a permanent injury or residual from that episode or injury at work, and afford them additional rights under the ADA Act. So let's talk about, I've thrown a lot at you. It's hard to only spend 40 to 45 minutes talking to you about a process that can save you a lot of money, can save you a lot of headaches. But I do want you to be aware of further exposures that can occur. When your insurance carrier denies a claim, it may trigger an obligation to move that incident into a short-term disability claim. Perhaps you don't have work available, so you offer unemployment. But it leaves you standing in the lurch. And when I say that, is that insurance carriers can have medical record reviews with peers or independent medical evaluations to stop benefits. If they are questioning the claim for many reasons, such as current medical treatment, they've treated too long and they're going to 24 physical therapy visits that turn into 54, or they're maybe seeing a chiropractor too long or a podiatrist, that's when the insurance company has the right to do either one of those actions, looking forward, to make their line in the sand. So then you have to figure out as the employer, what are you going to do with that person while they're still on work restrictions given by their own personal physician? So that's where having a return to work program comes in handy, either inside or outside your organization, but you do have to have a plan. I'm sorry, can you go back to the prior slide? Thank you. I'm talking too long here. So absence of a short-term disability plan, if you have one, or if you don't have one, the ramification can be, and we are seeing a lot of that specifically during the last couple of years, is you may have workers that that'll make a claim for a non-work related injury, but they're looking for money. People live paycheck to paycheck, and so they are going to be desperate and try to find other ways to get money. I guess number one, do you have a short-term disability program? How long is that program? Is there a waiting period? Is it mandatory? Is it voluntary? Is there universal coverage? Are the benefits sufficient? And what percentage does it pay? How is their claim service? Is it good or is it poor? Well, those are things you may want to review. So regroup, revitalize, and repair. So after you've worked on a return to work program and transitional work as well, please take the appropriate time to review the successes and the challenges that you have faced. Make sure that you have the claims coordinator involved, the human resource manager, safety director, VP of operations, maybe your controller, and a plant manager. You also may want to teleconference in your insurance claims representative or your loss control representative. We are happy to participate with you at HJI as well to help you in that process. And I think it's worth the time to make this successful and to save you on paying out indemnity costs that drive your experience mod up and your premium. I just wanted to advise you that we do have 3 people in our claims department that are willing and able to help you. We all have over at least 20 years experience in all lines. Our job here is to advocate for you in working with your insurance carrier to resolve any issues. You know, we have about 12 to 15 different insurance carriers that we deal with. We've taken upon ourselves in our job to develop a solid rapport with these claims people. They're all great to work with. They all are very positive in response when we talk with them about the claims, and that's only to benefit you, the client. We also partner with our human resource consultants to listen and troubleshoot items that you may have, and we discuss them via teleconference together. I want you to think about what struggles you are facing either without a return to work program or with a return to work program. I don't want you to lose sleep over this. We're here to help you, and there certainly is help available. And if we don't have the answer, we certainly will find one for you. So be smart, work smart, seek help internally and outside, and use any resource that you have. It was a joy speaking with you this morning, and I hope that you have some questions for me.
Yes, we certainly do have some questions. I will just mention that if you were following this webinar for any HR credits, I have listed them right below on this slide. So we'll get started with questions. Please type in a question if you are interested in hearing Peg's answer about the many topics that she covered in this webinar. So our first question is, what are the cons to sending your employees to Goodwill? Should I be worried about employees getting further injured if they're not under my direct supervision?
That's a great question. And I would parallel that with the question I get all the time is, you know, I'm worried about bringing Joe Jones back to work because he was injured. He's just going to get injured again. What am I going to do? I have to tell you the facts of life, everyone. You are the employer, and you have an obligation to your employee. You still have that relationship. And maybe it's a coin toss, but each claim, each injury is investigated by the insurance company. There is a life to a claim, a beginning, a history, and an end. They could get injured on your premise or outside your premise as well. But I think if you do nothing, that is the worst thing to do. But yes, I do totally understand that. Those people are your injured employees are supervised. These programs are set up with solid contacts, either through your insurance carrier who has worked in this process for a long time. But yes, they are doing a regular job and are supervised by someone at off-site locations. Great question.
All right, on to the next one. The next question is, do you have to have your employees' permission to talk to their doctor? If so, should this be in writing?
Absolutely not. In Wisconsin, when you file a workers' compensation claim, you waive your HIPAA rights. You waive the right because you are making a claim against your employer for something that occurred during the course and scope of your employment. Doctors are able, you are able to talk to the doctors or nurses or anyone involved in the care, physical therapists, but you have to know what's going on. And the only people that can tell you medically and who drive the claim are the medical providers. So no, you don't need permission. Some clinics have medical authorizations that their clients have to sign. That is very wrong. You have every right to be talking about your employee to medical providers.
All right, and this one is more of a statement. And it says, employers cannot ask about past workers' compensation claims in the hiring process. Do you want to just expand on that, Peg?
Yes, that is definitely true. You don't want to be discriminatory to a possible hire by asking about prior injuries, prior incidents. I know that can be a hindrance. I know that is a big red flag, but no, you're not able to do that. And that's why many of our clients have pre-employment physicals after a job offer is made. I know they are expensive, but they will go to that means to verify through a physical examination if someone has had like a surgery. You can see a scar. Do they have a disability? You have to be careful, but many of our employers do have the pre-employment physical as a tool to use.
All right. Next one is, how would you handle return to work with a COVID-19 claim?
Oh gosh, that's the $64 question everybody wants to know. Right now, I'm not sure if they're, I'll address it this way. I'm not sure if they're claiming that they got COVID-19 from their place of employment, or they had or got the virus at a family gathering and then came back to work. I think you have to consult your county requirements, which I believe are online. I know our human resource professionals, follow the protocol of the governor and of our specific county. In specific county where you live, I would certainly refer to that so that you have safe practices in place and are ready to bring someone back in either situation. Also, Rachel DeGrand, who's helping with this presentation this morning, and Cassie Hopkins, thank you both. Rachel sends out usually daily updates for what is happening with the COVID situation, and I believe has published information about how other companies are bringing people back to work.
Thank you for that question. Our next question is, I have had multiple doctors tell me they can't give me information without the employee's permission. What should I do about this?
That's a toughie. That's a toughie. Well, I guess a couple of things. If they're talking about speaking directly to doctors, once again, provide them. You can send. I guess a couple of things. I guess I would make it clear to the treating practitioner, whoever it is, that you as the employer need medical information to bring the person back to work. And if you don't have that information, their client, their patient will not be able to come back and participate, in the medical treatment plan that they're prescribing. You're the one paying the bills. I know that can be a carte blanche answer. Maybe you need to go down there and talk with them in person. But if all it's going to take is a phone call from your injured employee in your office, or have you call and talk to them, then do that. I think what you have to do, whatever you can do to get the medical information. Many clinics, they draw their line in the sand, but I guess reminding them that you're the one paying the bills on this situation, it's your employee, and you have the best wishes and intentions for them to come back, but need this information to make this happen.
That was a great answer, Peg. I just want to point out to our attendees in our chat, Rachel has posted the coronavirus resources page. So if you do have any questions related to insurance or claims, there is going to be quite a bit of information on that resources page that's just related to our industry. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can just check that out in the chat feature. All right, I am not seeing any more questions come through, going once, going twice. If you have everything you guys need for questions, I guess I'm going to wrap things up. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar. We appreciate all the questions that you provided with, and just remember to fill out that short survey. Your feedback is incredibly important to us. We appreciate any comments you can make on making our webinars better. We hope you can join us for our next webinar on advanced documentation and discipline on September 2nd. Thank you again to everyone and have a great rest of your morning.
Thank you, everyone.